Microplastic. Humanity accuses you of destroying marine ecology, releasing toxic gases while burning, overproduction and failure to fulfill social responsibility. How do you plead?
Not guilty. Our ancestors were hailed as a great invention for their portability, durability and economy. We've served humanity for over half a century. There are widespread traces of us in every household. It's not my fault that I wasn't made into someone's beloved cup. Humans are the guilty ones for dumping us after they're done with us. I have footage from when I was alive as evidence. It's me again, the plastic bottle that's just been thrown away. I've become marine trash after being blown into the sea. But I'll be invisible soon because the sun's UV rays and the waves will shatter me into a million pieces, measuring just 5 millimeters. I'll become microplastic waste that drifts in ocean or gets eaten by marine organisms coming back into contact with humans via the food chain. Professor Chen Qingming began looking into the presence of microplastics in Hong Kong's waters as early as 2015. He collected plastic out at sea and also looked for their traces in seafood. In the end, he chose the oyster, a filter feeder, as the indicator for his experiments. He estimated the extent of contamination in the food chain by analyzing the amount of microplastics found in oysters. The research revealed that the oysters sold at local wet markets are generally contaminated by microplastics. Some samples even contained a whopping 100 pieces of microplastic. The professor said that various studies have shown that microplastics are present in mollusks, crustaceans, and even fish. Even if they're rinsed before cooking, only the microplastic particles on the surface get washed off. Does that mean we shouldn't eat any seafood at all? The professor pointed out that even if we do consume microplastic particles, 90% of them will be passed out of the body through excretion. However, what he's most concerned about is that microplastics will introduce harmful substances found in seawater into the body and cause unknown illnesses. Researcher YY works in food inspection. He's currently testing the adsorption interaction between microplastics and marine pollutants. For now, the scientific community has yet to produce evidence that microplastics have negative effects on our health. However, clinical trials involving animals have shown that they do affect the organs and even cells. Professor Joseph Sung believes that, despite their minute size, microplastics pose an enormous threat to humanity. Microplastics lurk in every corner of the city. Some ride on the wind, while some flow into rivers via water pipes. They ultimately gather at sea. In 2015, Dr. Zheng Xiugin began conducting research related to microplastics. He compared the amount of microplastics collected at 20 beaches in East and West Hong Kong and found no significant differences between them. He deduced that microplastic pollution doesn't only originate in the Pearl River estuary to the west, but very likely the city's rivers too. Today, his team has brought us to Xingmun River in Sha Tin to look for traces of microplastics. Carmen is the PhD student responsible for this study. She plans on collecting water samples from the Xingmun, Lam Chun, Chun Mun and Mu Wo rivers in different seasons over 2 years to analyze their microplastic content. This is her 9th time collecting samples from Xingmun. Walking along Xingmun River, we noticed there was rubbish everywhere. Plastic bags, water bottles, and even moss. According to the Drainage Services Department, Hong Kong's sewage treatment facilities can remove 80% of microplastics from the water they process after primary and secondary treatment. They're not entirely eliminated. Synthetic fibers are found in most clothes. This means that both you and I may be indirectly complicit in marine pollution. According to data from the International Union for Conservation of Nature, 35% of microplastic pollution is attributed to synthetic fibers. Edwin's team began exploring how to recycle synthetic fibers using high-temperature and high-pressure technologies in 2015 so that discarded clothing can be reused as yarn, thereby reducing the amount of pollution caused by wastefulness.